I love Cave Story. For me, it's basically the video game equivalent of comfort food. Made by just one dude, Daisuke Amaya, also known as Pixel, it's a game that never gets old to me no matter how many times I play it, despite the fact that it'll be turning 12 years old this December. I even covered it once on this series already over a year before Jack invited me to produce great levels in gaming for Achievement Hunter. That wasn't enough for me though, so here I am again. Just like I can't stop replaying Cave Story, apparently I can't stop talking about it either, so let's take a look at the Labyrinth and the Last Cave. Oh, and before we dive in, what you're seeing here is Cave Story Plus, the version you can get on Steam and a few Nintendo platforms, and I'll be using its translations because it was already on my computer, it's easy to get, and sales support the developer. Despite its name, I actually want to look at the Last Cave first, and not just because it has awesome music. Just before you reach the top of the island in preparation for the gauntlet of boss fights at the end of the game, you have to traverse the cave, separating it from the plantation down below. As its name suggests, it's the final cave that every player will see before the end of the game, with only the most hardcore of players seeing another in the form of the Bloodstained Sanctuary when they go for the super special secret ending. As such, it acts as one final test of your platforming skills, with a Z, obviously, before you face the Doctor and his minions. I guess what I'm taking too many words to say is that it's hard. It's really, really hard, and I'm pretty sure that's the point. What's so interesting to me is how it achieves this difficulty. If you play through the game multiple times, you may discover that the Last Cave's layout is actually different depending on what gear you have. In the Labyrinth, which we'll get to in more detail in a moment, you can get a jetpack from Professor Booster called the Booster V0.8, which allows you to boost upward after jumping for about a second before it runs out of fuel. However, you can actually skip getting this jetpack and instead later on get the more powerful Booster V2.0, which allows you to boost up, down, left, and right. If you have this one instead, you'll get the hidden version of the Last Cave, which has more spikes and enemies, throws a boss at you, and even drops all your weapons to level 1 at the start. Honestly, Pixel kinda had to make a second version of the level for players with the better booster, since it would pretty much trivialize the platforming challenges in the normal version. But, as you can probably tell, the difference in difficulty extends beyond just harder jumps, and that's the bit that really interests me. If you take the Booster V0.8, there's no indication that another version exists until at the very end of the game, and the only clue you can get is easy to miss. This means that Pixel could pretty safely assume that most of the players who get the Booster V2.0 know enough about the game to be aware that getting it means opting into the increased difficulty of a jetpack-free Labyrinth. These are players who are familiar and skilled enough with the game to self-select into an added challenge, and the design of the hidden Last Cave indicates that Pixel knew this. Knowing that these are players who are willing to go the extra mile, he went above and beyond to make sure that the Last Cave provided a challenge that's proportionate to their abilities. I really love when a developer puts this much effort into catering to players with a wide range of skill. It shows a lot of care for their work, and I think it's worth celebrating. Now, I was originally only planning to focus on the Last Cave, but as I was playing through the game again to get back to it, the Labyrinth stuck out to me as well. After Cave Story's first few levels introduce you to its characters and set the stakes, this level changes things up a bit. Its objective, Escape the Labyrinth, is dead simple, and the game uses this simplicity as an opportunity to start to establish some more of the world's backstory. I want to start by taking a look at one of these details in particular. As soon as you're dropped into the Labyrinth, you'll probably notice that the music playing there is a variation on Jenka's theme, which plays when you visit her house in the Sand Zone just before. This immediately establishes that there's some connection between Jenka and the Labyrinth, and you can quickly learn just what that connection is. A short while into the level, once you reach the Labyrinth shop, you can speak to a particular Gaudi who reveals that the area was created by an old witch. Unfortunately, you can't get any more info from it than that. However, since it's already been established that Jenka is the mother of Misery, the powerful sorceress who sends you here in the first place, you can figure out that it was Jenka herself who made the Labyrinth. The shopkeeper himself will confirm this for you if you strike a deal with him, but if you want the spur weapon, and trust me, you want the spur, you won't have this option until after you've escaped the Labyrinth and come back. I absolutely love when a game uses its music to tell a story, and the music in this level all but ensures that you learn something about the connection between Jenka and the Labyrinth itself, even if you don't speak to the couple of Gaudi who explain it directly. While we're still on the topic of the music, it's also worth noting that it steadily shifts away from Jenka's theme over the course of the level, which can convey a sense of progress as you work your way through. Its beat gets progressively stronger as you get closer to the exit before it fully transitions to the maze theme once you get past the boulder chamber. Also worth noting is the hard shift in the music's tone once you reach the core. This conveyed to me pretty strongly that I was absolutely not supposed to be there once I arrived. Pretty cool stuff, right? Also cool is the way that the enemies and their placement throughout the level reward you for switching up your weapons on the fly. One of my favorite things about Cave Story is the diverse set of weapons you collect, and while you can totally get through the area with something like your Polar Star or machine gun alone if you really want to, you'll probably have an easier time of it if you play around with all of the tools in your arsenal. For example, the fireball can be useful for enemies like the purple critters and Buyo Buyo bases that are often tucked away below you, and the blade and bubble line are great for the Gouty you encounter early in the labyrinth and the fuzzes toward the end. By quietly suggesting that you vary up your playstyle without ever requiring it, the game encourages you to think about each encounter, which keeps you engaged and helps keep the game feeling fresh if you choose to experiment with different weapons. To me, it also helps convey the idea that getting out of the labyrinth is a Herculean task, since I was aware that I was using every tool available to me in order to get through. It's presented as a near insurmountable challenge, which would be less believable to me if I knew I could get through easily only using 1 or 2 of the 5 weapons I had collected. My favorite example of this is one of the level's first 2 bosses, Monster X. This fight is a constant shifting back and forth between crowd control and damage dealing, with each phase playing to the strengths and weaknesses of different weapons. For example, the bubble line does a great job of dealing with the swarms of destructible projectiles the boss throws at you, but struggles a bit as a damage dealer. In contrast, something like the blade or the rocket launcher does tons of damage to Monster X, but isn't great at protecting you from its attacks. Additionally, avoiding its treads makes the fight not just a combat test, but a platforming test as well, meaning that the fight challenges your ability in pretty much every aspect of Cave Story's gameplay. This is something this game does well across many of its boss fights, and Monster X is a great example of how this kind of design can be equal parts challenging and engaging for someone like me who really loves his platformers. Also, there's a fun little reveal about Monster X once you've beaten it. I hope you'll forgive me for being coy and not wanting to give it away for those of you who haven't played Cave Story yet, but suffice it to say that Lindsay would probably really dig it. But seriously, go play Cave Story already. While we're on the subject of bosses, I also want to briefly mention the core, the final boss of the labyrinth, which shares its name with the area it's in. It's a bit confusing, I know. As you learn upon defeating it, the core is the thing keeping the island floating in the sky. As such, it's a powerful enemy that throws tons of projectiles at you and can be hard to hit through its little sub-cores. What's so neat about this boss is how it uses the mechanics of the fight to convey this power. Most of the bosses in Cave Story, especially up to this point, don't have many displacement abilities, which are attacks that move your character around outside of your control. Therefore, it's a bit of a surprise when the core pushes you away from it and against the far wall. In doing so, the game removes a good deal of the control you have over your character, which can make you feel weak and helpless while emphasizing the power of the core. It also makes sense that the thing that's able to keep the island in the sky is also able to push you around a bit. And as far as conveying power goes, it doesn't hurt that it also throws these massive death balls at you. Actually, it does hurt. It hurts a lot. It's kind of the point. Anyway, speaking of feelings of helplessness, the game totally preys on your expectations at the end of the fight. Up until this point, every time you've been submerged in water, you've been able to resurface with plenty of time left before you run out of air. As such, you'll probably feel totally helpless when the chamber fills with water after you beat the core and you can't find a way out. The panic you feel as your air meter ticks down is exactly what your character would be feeling, and I love when a game uses its mechanics to engage you like this. It's totally immersive, and not just because you're underwater. Wow, that's 2 videos in a row in which a water immersion pun just fell into my lap. I did not plan for that. Beyond the broad stuff like the level's music, enemy placement, and bosses, the Labyrinth also does a lot of little things that I think really add up to enrich the experience. Naturally, we'll be starting with some eyeball rocks. Over the 3 areas that precede Monster X, you'll encounter these blocks that move when you cross their path, and I love the way the game introduces this mechanic. Moving platforms are pretty par for the course in platformers, but this is the first time these are encountered in Cave Story. The first ones you run into are at the top of the first chamber, where there's little consequence if you fall as you get used to them, aside from the time it takes to climb back up. Additionally, if you're jumping as high as you can to get on each stone, each jump will make you cross the path for the next stone and make it start moving even if you don't see it at first. The next two sets increase the risk of getting crushed, then add spikes into the mix respectively, steadily increasing the difficulty. I love that the game introduces this mechanic in a controlled, low-risk environment before presenting you with new challenges after each success. Oh, and that first chamber where you're introduced to the moving platforms? The robots at the bottom of the room go through the main door once you've opened it. On the other side, the mangled remains of one of them can signal that the nearby Gaudi isn't too fond of robots. This can help you figure out that it's an enemy without having ever encountered it before, and hammers home just how threatening the Labyrinth is. Next, check out the arms barrier. In Cave Story, taking a hit makes you lose some of the experience you've accrued for your equipped weapon, and the arms barrier decreases the amount you lose per hit. That is, unless that weapon is the spur. Have I mentioned yet that I love the spur? The chest that holds the arms barrier is easily visible from the camp, as is the entrance that leads to it, so you can easily be enticed to seek it out. What's so cool about it to me is how you get it. Unless you have the machine gun or the booster, you actually have to get hit by the purple critter you see here in order to reach the ledge that leads to it. As a result, you're more likely to appreciate the benefit the arms barrier provides, since the experience loss it mitigates will probably still be fresh in your mind. Speaking of the booster, that little jetpack makes Labyrinth B a pretty interesting area despite its small size. Upon entry, you see Professor Booster drop down, which can draw you down to speak to him and get the booster V0.8 as a result. Because of this, at first it can seem like you need the jetpack in order to cross the room and reach the entrance to the boulder chamber. However, if you jump at just the right spot, denoted by the little red notch on the floor, you can actually clear the jump without the booster V0.8, which is how you can proceed to get the V2.0 later on. Additionally, the heal point on the boulder chamber side of the room requires the booster or the machine gun in order to reach it, which is pretty interesting to me. I think it's cool that Pixel put this little added benefit for players who may not be as familiar with the game, but players who want the better booster later on and missed or don't want the machine gun can still refill their supplies by farming the Gaudi in the previous area. It's a bit more involved than a simple heal station, but so is the path to getting the booster V2.0 compared to the V0.8, and the sheer number of Gaudi there mean you can probably resupply pretty quickly and without much fuss. Similarly, the checkpoint at the camp allows you to farm the Gaudi for XP and missiles, and the checkpoint just before the fight against the core does the same with the fuzzes and fuzz cores. This is really smart design because while it may take some time to do so, you're always able to heal and prep before a big fight, whereas the alternative could leave you in a nearly impossible situation that would just feel cheap. In summary, Cave Story is, to me, an incredible example of how great a game can be when its creator goes to great lengths in service of their vision. I seriously doubt that Daisuke Amaya cut many corners in his design, especially considering that he went so far as to make two different versions of The Last Cave to make sure that every player is given a challenge proportionate to their abilities as they near the end of the game. Then there's the Labyrinth, which is so massive that I probably could have done this entire video on it alone. Its design and enemy placement are amazing, it has some of my favorite bosses in the game, it varies the experience for players of different skill levels, and so much more. These levels are a huge part of why, much like I do with its Labyrinth, I find it so easy to lose myself in Cave Story. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me again next time to take a look at another great level in gaming.
Upside is that this flag doesn't split
off.
Again. You don't lose half of it.
Problem is I suck.
We don't know.
Ah, I tried to get out of there! Oh, damn it.
Shit. You have the flag.
They got our flag. I got a flag.
Help me, Michael!
Help me, little Michael!
You got it.
Don't
Boom! Die!
That's right.